Hello, and this is an update regarding healthcare managerial accounting. So we're completing week 3 as I make this recording, and most of you have already completed quiz 1, and the scores are extremely good, which is what I expect. I expect everyone to do well in the course, and so what I've done along the way is to post practice quizzes / graded assignments, and if you've done those, then you see the quizzes kind of fall in line with those. So if you haven't taken quiz 1 yet, and I know at least 2 of you have not yet taken it, then please, I've extended the due date because it is the first quiz, and I know that sometimes, particularly in online classes, sometimes the communication isn't as clear or something comes up. So by all means, please complete quiz 1 so you can get credit for it. So that's all I'm going to say on quiz 1. So this week we will move on to a topic called activity-based costing. Activity-based costing is one of the essential tools that has been developed in the last 25 to 30 years for the managerial accounting profession that enables us to do a much better job determining the cost of things that are important to an organization. So you might ask, well, what things are important to an organization to know the cost of? And certainly products or services that we sell, we want to know the cost of those things. But we also want to know the cost of different operations that we run and different things that people do and different activities that go on. Because as managers and key decision makers in organizations, we're constantly asked to make decisions. And the decisions might be, if it's a product or service, what price that we should offer to our customers for, or if somebody asks us for a discount on a price, can we afford to make that discount and still make a profit or recover our costs? Or we might be asked to evaluate, does it make sense to continue a particular operation or a particular service? So knowing the cost of that particular operation or service is critical. So, and then there are a series of other decisions that we make as managers and key decision makers. So it could be whether we're going to add or drop a segment, whether we're going to buy something that is outsourced something, or whether we're going to make it ourselves, or whether we're going to add or drop a particular segment of our operation, and so forth and so on. So we're constantly evaluating things and trying to improve our operation, trying to improve our results. And this applies to all types of organizations. It's not just for-profit organizations. So it can be nonprofit organizations, it can be service organizations, manufacturing organizations, it can be merchandising operations. So any organization has to understand their costs so they can make better decisions. And that's really what we're after here, is helping our organization make better decisions. And so one of the key roles in the managerial accounting world is to understand cost. If we understand cost, then we have a chance to make better decisions. So what that leads into the whole discussion about activity-based costing. So activity-based, I've published a number of things here this week, which I think that will give you a flavor for what we mean by activity-based costing. If I were to sum up what's meant by activity-based costing, it really comes from an article that was published in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and that deals with the issue about how to get cost right so that we can make better decisions. And basically what this article pointed out, and rightfully so, was that there's 3 elements of cost. There's the direct labor portion, the direct material portion, and then there's the overhead or indirect cost portion. The direct labor and the direct material portion we have historically done pretty well, and we should continue to do that pretty well. And those costs are typically very easy to trace to the cost object, because with direct material or direct labor, I can pretty much determine how much time someone spends building a product or delivering a service, and I can figure out how much I pay that particular person or people to build the product, to deliver the service. And with direct materials, the same can be said, that I can figure out how many direct materials go into the product I build or the service I provide, and I can determine the cost of those things. So those two parts of cost, we typically have done a good job with, and we should continue to do a good job with in determining the cost of our cost object. What's a bigger challenge, however, is the indirect or the overhead cost. And as those become a larger and larger portion of the cost structure of operations, it becomes more important for us as managerial accountants to understand those costs and to apply them appropriately to the cost objects that we want to make decisions about. And so basically, the historical or traditional approach to overhead costs was to lump them all together in one big pool and then to find one simple cost driver. It might be units, it might be direct labor hours, direct labor dollars, and then apportion them to all products in a simple standard way. What activity-based costing teaches us is that we should take a different approach with overhead costs, that we should break out the key elements of overhead costs. So that might be depreciation, it might be insurance, it might be the facility cost. And then we should look at the cost objects, the products and services that we're making, and figure out, do they consume those resources? And when we do this approach, what we end up determining is that our costs change for products versus the traditional costing approach. And when our costs change for products or services or cost objects, then our decision making about those particular cost objects, products and services change as well. And so those are the key things that you're going to learn through these articles. And then you'll see that our friends Robert Kaplan and others also think that we can use this tool to help us solve the healthcare cost crisis. I hope he's right. And it's certainly a good perspective and one that we should become familiar with and aware of. So I think in terms of week 3, I know I put a fair amount of reading out here, but think about it this way, that we don't have lecture time, you don't have travel time. So the amount of time that you would have otherwise spent in a lecture, or you would have spent in travel back and forth between your residence and class, you can put into to learning more. Okay, and that's what I'm hoping, right? In addition to the normal time you would spend learning about a topic. So please, read through these, watch the video. I try to be selective. I try to provide things that I think are going to be really valuable to you as a student, and both for now and going forward in your career. So, okay. And then there's a practice quiz / graded assignment here. And basically the practice quiz graded assignment boils down to a couple of simple questions that ask you to define what activity-based costing is, because I want to make sure that you know what it is. Then compare it to what traditional costing is. So if you read the Measure Cost Right article, it'll answer those questions. But between that and the slides I put out there. And then I ask you to think about some examples. So I think now that it's not so much that I'm looking for perfection. I'm looking that you understand the concepts and apply them a little bit. And I know that at the end of one course in managerial accounting, you're not going to be a management accountant. You're not going to be an expert in these areas. So what I'm really gearing this course towards is to make sure that you understand the concepts and get a chance to talk about them or apply them a little bit by answering some questions. Okay, so I want to keep it relatively straightforward and simple. But with that said, I also want to let you know my personal opinion that this is an area that is of critical importance to managers and key decision makers. In my view, anyone who wants to be a manager of an organization or a key decision maker in an organization needs to understand cost and needs to understand the things that we're going to talk about in managerial accounting. So I would make this a required course in any program where people have that aspiration. So, and then the next set of questions talks about the healthcare cost crisis, the reading and the video that our friend Robert Kaplan and others do. So I'd like to answer those questions. And so you also know now that if you do these, then you're basically getting ready for the next quiz, which will be next week. Okay, so that's that. And then the other thing in terms of week 3 that I wanted to mention was, and this is less important to us, but But coming up for next week, we're going to move into something called cost volume profit analysis. You may have never heard of that before, but you'll see after we talk about it next week. That's a pretty simple concept, but yet can be very helpful to assist us in making better decisions. And then towards the end of next week, we'll have quiz 2, which will cover the materials that we're doing this week and next week. Okay, so as always, I strongly encourage you to email me, call me with questions. If you want to spend some time clarifying things, talking about things, that's what I'm here for. The only other thing which I almost forgot to mention is that I would like you to email me your term paper / project choice. So if you look on the syllabus, which is posted in the course introduction section, at the end of the syllabus, it talks about the course project in more detail. And I'll talk about that more next week, but in the interim, I'd like you to email me your choice, and then I expect to approve it. If I have an issue with it, I'll let you know, but that will at least get us started. And okay, so hope you have a great weekend, and hope to hear from you soon.